Greetings freaks and folks, this is Vlad. I know I promised a video for today and I want to deliver on that. Normally I planned to do some gameplay, but unfortunately I tried the whole day around with all types of decks and I didn't end up pretty well. So here I am just showing you the patch notes talk that I recorded actually yesterday or the day before it, before my Tarek video. I think it was yesterday, and it was just too long, so I decided to not include it in the deck video and instead going with a separate video, and I wanted to deliver on that today. But I will try to, get a proper deck rolling for the week, so you have something to watch there. I'm close to getting to a point where I have a viable deck to show, but there are a lot of decks that actually didn't work the way I intended to, and that's why I don't want to share bullshit decks basically. So that's that. And now have fun with the video. Without any further ado, let's jump right into this. I won't read all these things that I have to say about things like card updates and why they did this and everything. You can read it for yourself. There will be also a link to the patch notes in the description if you haven't seen already, but I think the vast majority of you already saw that. When the patch hit it, the expansion also was released, right, with the lurk and everything. But on top of that, they did 47, I counted it, 47 changes to cards, older cards, and I want to give my opinion on this. So we start off with Misfortune, that got the Overwhelm keyboard back. I don't know if I'm happy about this, like the all-in Misfortune and special Misfortune decks. I really love to see this change happen, because she is the main core of the deck and should be a finisher in that case, but I see it very scary for scouts, because this was why their nerf happened in the first place, because she was too strong in scouts and she will be quite strong again, so yeah, don't know if I'm too happy about this. Then we have J4, who now needs one less strike to survive, because his level up requirement is that he survives, he and his allies survive 4+ strikes, and now it's 3+ strikes. I think that's a pretty healthy buff for Jarvan. But on the other hand, he can get out of hand if he gets buffed any further. So yeah, we need to keep an eye on this dude. I think he will be prevalent in the upcoming meta that is forming right now. Then we have Trunamere that gets Overwhelm when he's on level 2. So basically when he died, he gets the 9/9 as normal, and then on top of the Overwhelm and the Fearsome that he has, he also gets the Tough. Don't know that if that does anything with Trunamere. I guess he is just now bigger and meaner and more beefy. Then we have a Karma change that I'm not too happy about in the first place, because I don't play a lot of Karma and I don't profit from the buff, so to say. I love to see that Iona gets love again, but having her on 5 mana was a problem in the past and probably will be in the future, so we also have to look out for that. Nerf to Aurelia, I also love to see that. For the Aurelia, for the other Aurelia decks that I built, I hated to see this, because I also wanted to give her a proper non-toxic version that he fits in with also the 8-drop that is forming, or that is existing in the Blade Dance archetype. And yeah, it will be quite hard to level her up there now, because in her non-leveled up form she is quite weak, I will say, because the strong thing is her spell that he gets when she's leveled up, right? And then we have the Riven that now gives you the Reforge upon entering the battlefield. It feels way better to play her now when you have the attack token yourself, when you attack on 3, right? So a good buff in that scenario, but this can also get toxic in the future with all the Draven Riven OTK decks, where you just get this buff on it in double attack, and then you just smash the Nexus without any interaction really, because they just give Immortal to either Riven or Draven. And it can be also tough to beat in the future, and this speeds up processes a lot when she gets this extra Reforge, so she levels way faster now. Then we have Heimerdinger that gets a +1/+1 buff. There's not much to say about this in general, it's just a healthy buff for him. He is a 5-mana champion, and so he needs some solid stats. I mean, he has a strong effect, but again, if you pay 5 mana, you at least want to have 4 health. I don't know if the 2 attack will matter ever, but the 4 health are pretty important for the Heimerdinger to survive longer. And I think because of the power creep that happened, it's just okay. Then we see Hecarim getting 1 HP more. I adored this change as well, as Hecarim is one of my favorite champions. And I think this 1 health can go a really long way, because most of the time when you level him, he still gets blocked by any 6 damage units. There are plenty out there. And thus killing him when he attacks. So now he can attack safer than before and not die in the process, and take a second time probably on the next round. Then we have Azir that gets to summon 13 units now to level up. Again, for Azir Aurelia, a really healthy buff. For all the other archetypes, a bit meh. Because here's the main thing you need to build to go with if you go Mono Shurima. And if you saw my videos back in the time I built with Zillion, for example, it's really hard to pull off his level up when he has 10 and now he needs 13. And yeah, you have to include more units now that spread, like the Dunekeeper, for example, and stuff. So yeah, for Azir really good, for everything else not so good. Then we see Nasus not having the Fearsome anymore that he used to have on level 1. I think also a healthy nerf to the archetype Thresh Nasus that was quite dominating over the meta. And now we can also, with a 0 attack unit or whatever, just jump block into the Nasus up to the point where he's leveled, and then he gets to Fearsome. And I think that's a quite fair exchange. So he still levels in your hand and then deck and everywhere. Or he not levels, he stacks up the attack and health. And I think that's an aspect that Nasus needs to keep. Because it's still hushable and stuff, so I think it's a quite fair champion overall. Then we have Sivir that now needs 5 damage less to deal. Again, a decent buff for her. I don't know if this matters too much. We will see in the future. I think it will, actually. There are many cases where I played Sivir and was still needing the 5 damage. And this can, means an attack earlier with her in her leveled form, and she in her leveled form is pretty nuts if you build properly around her. So I think we'll also see a lot of Sivir in the future. Then Talia doesn't need the landmark anymore if she attacks to actually proc the 3 leveled up rocks that she throws. So now she just throws it anyways. And also a power creep in herself, right? She just got the +1/+1 last patch. Now she doesn't need the landmark anymore. Also can really matter in the long term. We'll have to wait and see how she forms, but I don't see her being a meta anyway soon, up to the point where you have landmarks that are really good for her. And then we have Taric getting another HP after he got buffed in the attack recently, or like recently, back in some patches, and now he has 1 HP more. So I think Taric can get scary in the future because of this, because now he technically has 6 HP when he's attacking, because he does get tough if he supports a unit, and you basically almost always have a unit to support to get the tough on him. So he's technically a 3/6, and at 4 mana there's, I think, almost nothing that can kill him at this point. So you're pretty safe to attack if you have the attack token on 4. Also a really decent buff. I think it's okay to just buff certain cards and champions to a point where they tend to get too strong, and then you can turn it down back later. But we didn't see Taric back in the last meta, so maybe he has time to shine this time around. Yeah, Aphelios also getting the 1 HP back that he lost some patches ago. Still pretty bad in my opinion, because the weapons still cost too much. So yeah, it was just a needed revert, because he got over-nerfed to a degree. I think the main problem was the temple, the landmark, that made him so strong, and that also got nerfed with the HP buff. You only get the attack buff now from the Moon Temple, I think is the name. And so I could also see giving him back the 2 mana weapons at some point. I think this is one of the very good examples where I have to say that there are plenty of cards that need to have a 0.5 mana cost. So the weapons would be perfectly balanced at 2.5, but I think at 2 they are too cheap, and at 3 they are too expensive to make him viable. So maybe they put another payoff for the weapons at 3 mana in the future. We'll see. Make It Rain, getting back to 2 mana, is giving Bilgewater their signature card back. I think every region has their most prevalent and most used and powerful spell, and Bilgewater lost it when Make It Rain got up to 3 mana, and now it's back to 2 mana. Really good revert in that sense, and just making the region viable again. Same for Black Market Merchant, that also got nerfed way back in the time. I think almost a year ago from now. And now he gets this 1 HP back. So nap is actually a thing again. Double up. A lot of people said that this still is bad, and I kind of agree. But together with Kex, for example, this could also be kind of scary, because it's a fast speed decimate in a sense, right? That you deal 4 damage, and if you have Kex, you deal 5 and more. So I mean, it's very countable. You can fizzle the spell in many ways, because you have to kill a unit first to proc the damage on the Nexus. But other than that, I can see this being played in the future in some rare scenarios. Slotbot getting a upgraded version where he gets this effect that he normally gets upon next round start. He now gets it also when he's summoned. So the amount of cards you drew in this round up to the point where you summon him will actually give him the +1, +0, +1, and then shuffle his stats right away. So you can also spawn him as a 5/1, for example, and then he dies right away. So it's a buff and a nerf in both sides, right? But more a buff than a nerf. Let's go with that. Then Confront, going down to 2 mana. I think this is something that needed to happen when this card was released, because I always felt that 3 mana for granting Challenger is too much. Even though Challenger is a really powerful keyword, 3 mana is just way too much. And I'm happy that they were going with the 2 mana now. Also healthy buff. Then they buffed some really old cards, what we actually asked for, like the Mage Seeker Inciter. I never pronounced this because I never was talking about this card, but it was always there, especially in expeditions that I play a lot. This dude is in my deck at times. And now he has 1 HP more. I don't know if this makes anything to him. Like now he's a 6/6 if you have cast a 6-cost spell. Yeah, could be decent in Lux decks that will form in the next weeks, I think. Then we have the Laurent Bladekeeper. Now has 1 attack more. Really big buff for him, because going up this 1 attack to 3 is very important, as he can now block into fearsomes. And he himself sort of acting like a squire. Most of the time you want to buff your Fiora or whatever with that, and grant a +2/+2, and he himself is then a chunk blocker for any unit that potentially now can also be a fearsome unit. So really big buff to this card, and will be played more, I think, in the future. Howling Abyss, getting down to 6 mana. I think people are underestimating this card quite a bit. When it goes off at some point, it's extremely scary. And if people find the right deck for it, I think it can also be a tier 2 to 3 deck in the right build. And at that point we need more landmark removal to counter that, but it's still the most expensive landmark there is, but also the effect is extremely strong. And yeah, pull you the nuts, or just a shitty Maokai level 2. So we have to keep an eye on that, I will say that. Then we have Ren Shadowblade having 1 more attack now. Yet again, I don't know if this card goes anywhere with it, but I will experiment with it for sure. Dancing Droplet not having the attune anymore makes them close to unplayable, in my opinion. There are way more elusives that are better than this unit, and the effect just to draw one when it's recalled was really good, because you could then play it basically for free after you recalled him, and now you can't do this anymore. So it's technically a costs 1 more nerf to the card, and this almost kills it, in my opinion. And I'm not happy to see it, to be honest. I have it in my zillion Yasuo deck that I wanted to refine, and now I can't do this Monastery of Hyrana recall, draw a card, and play this again for free combo, and this is really sad for me. I cry every time. And then we have the Green Great Lookout. He also got 1 HP more. A long forgotten card, never played, reduce the cost of the 8th most expensive unit in your hand by 1 if you don't know what this unit does. But I'm glad that they made this at least a bit viable. Then we have Young Witch having 1 HP more, also a healthy buff for the support archetype that was always struggling to shine in the meta, and potentially we will see it in the future. And then we have Will of Ionia getting back to 4 mana when it was nerfed to 5 some month ago. I don't know about this one. I mean, it was a reason why it was nerfed. Most importantly because of Ezreal Karma, and it will be a thing in the future again, especially with the Karma buff and the Will of Ionia buff. I just hope it won't form the tier 1 deck again, and then we will have it for some more time. I mean, the developer said that in the future they will actually revert things that are too strong and do this more frequently than they did this in the last couple of months, where the changes were lacking a lot. So it's okay, test it out, we'll see it. Maybe Will of Ionia at 4 mana is okay at this point where we have so many other powerful cards in the game. We'll see about that. Then we have Twin Disciplines going on to 2 mana. A lot of people said that this is a really good change, and I agree partly on that, but I think it's extremely strong due to its flexibility. And this is another card where I would say 2.5 mana would be perfect for this card, but at 2 mana it could be too strong at times. But other than that, it encourages Ionia to play more unit-based decks. That wasn't really the case back in time. They have a lot of units that can actually do this, but most of the time they just are there for control, and Deny was Ionia's identity, so maybe it gives Ionia another identity, this card, and will shine as another signature card for the region, right? I see this being a good way to go and test it out. Then we have the Incisive Tactician being a 5/5 now. I don't know why they didn't do this in the first place. When I was reacting to this card, I said this, why is there a reputation card where so many cards are in your deck that actually go with 5 attack, and this, so to say, late game bomb that either costs 6 or 8, where you really has not the 5 attack. Like, why? Just why? I didn't understand it, especially because there are no more keywords to the unit, so this 1 more attack is just a very good fix, I would say, to the card. Then we have City Breaker, a card that you also only see in Expeditions, now has 1 attack more. I don't know if this makes the card playable, I think not. But it makes it way better, as you can, at least if you block, you can at least do damage or potentially take out some 1-drops by doing that. Just another very healthy buff. As well as Jamie Daughter, that now is a 5/5. That dude that's always getting buffed on, or reworked rather. He was reworked once, and then from that point onwards he got buffed, and now he's a 5/5 at some point. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the Jamie Daughter meta after the next buff that he gets. And we will see each other at that point. Then Middenstoke Henchman. The card that's also never seen out of Expedition, has 1 HP more, and this is something I'm more excited about, and I will actually try to build a deck around this dude. But for the time being, I have so many other decks that I have to build that maybe he won't be in the near future in a proper deck that I'm building. Rummage going up in 1 mana cost. What's important to note here, that they didn't write it down. It says now that you can discard up to 2 cards. So it wasn't only a flat nerf. You can also say, I will just discard 1 card and draw 1. But you can still discard 2 and draw 2. So it has some flexibility to it. And I think it's a nice flavor. And also think it's a healthy nerf in a way that for 1 mana drawing 2 cards is just too sick. And at that point where we have Rummage at 2 mana, I think you can also de-nerf the Twisted Fate again. But we have to touch that carefully, was the word I was looking for. And yeah, we have still more. We have Tribeam Probably going 1 mana up. I don't know if this was needed. Both of these cards are mainly to do harm at Ezreal Draven that had its fun for a very long time, and it's okay to nerf some cards in this deck. But for other decks where you want to run Tri-Beam, I don't know. Yeah, it's still a really strong card. It costs 1 more. It won't break the card, I think, but I don't know if this was nerf was necessary. Watcher. This is probably one of the most important changes in this list, as Trundle Lissandra control is no longer a thing. I think the deck can still be run, but it will be way worse than it was beforehand, as you now need 5+ allies to cast that cost 8+ to give him the 0 mana cost. But the most important part is that you only obliterate the deck to a point where he has 3 cards left. So you technically have 2 more rounds to win the game after the Watcher attacked you. And this is enough, I would say, to actually close out the game before your run out of stock cards. So yeah, I'm extremely happy about this. I can't express how happy I am. Trundle Lissandra control was just so toxic, and I'm happy it's gone now. And hopefully we will not see it that quickly in the future again. Rasa, Lissandra, going to a 8/6 now. He was nerfed to that stats after the beta. He was nerfed there to the 7/5, and now he's going back to an 8/6. Yeah, for my fearsome deck, really good thing. But I don't know if this has some very big implications to it. Let's go with that. Then we have Dusk Rider having 1 attack more now, making it a bit better, but I think it still sucks. I gotta be honest here. Dusk Rider is just too expensive for the Nightfall archetype, and it probably will still be in the future for what it does. But we will have to experiment with things here. Escaped Abomination. I don't know if this nerf was necessary. I know that it's pretty toxic to go turn 2 Curse Keeper into Ravenous Butcher and have this 4/3 and a 3/2 body at turn 2 and attack with them for 7 damage is kind of the nuts combo, but they don't have the means to pull this off every time. Also, they are not attacking every time on evens. So I don't know. For a lot of Shadow Isles decks, the Escaped Abomination or the Curse Keeper that is actually doing this card is really crucial, and it's a nerf to all these decks where the Curse Keeper is in. I'm not too happy about this. Same goes for Stalking Shadows, that got almost butchered completely, as it now costs 3 mana. There are some nerfs like this where I would say, why are you nerfing this card so hard in a way that it costs 50% more, but you don't give it any payoff for it? Like, just make it look at the top 5 or 6 cards at least, to not have the situation where you pay this mana and you don't hit any follower, and then you paid it for nothing and lost the card in the process. So this is can be game losing at times if you pay 3 mana to do literally nothing and don't get a payoff for later. It's just gone, the mana and also the card. So I think they should make it at least look at the top 6 cards to have a payoff for the 1 more mana. The Clock Hand getting +3 attack. I don't know why they don't just get it +1 or +2, straight up +3. So it's another strong attacker at the point where you mostly use it for Frostguard Thralls, right? But I also play it in my Mono Disc and Shurima deck, and I potentially will include more of copies of this dude to actually get this rolling, because Azir is not anymore a very reliable thing to have, because you need this 13 units to give him a level up, right? Raz Bloodmane also getting +1/+1. Yet again, another card that I love to see for my fearsome deck, where I have Raza and Raz. And I will gladly go back to this deck, so stay tuned for that. And then with Dunekeeper, a long-awaited nerf that he now has the stats switched. He got 1 attack less. And I'm happy that this is the case, because it was just too toxic when you have the attack token and play him, and you attack with it and get 4 damage on turn 1. It was just way too strong. And I think Shurima shouldn't be just known for being the aggressor or being good for aggro decks, splashing Shurima and just for the Dunekeeper and things like Merciless Hunter, right? Then we have the Mountain Sojourners that are a 4/5 now, and I'm extremely happy that this got buffed. Now can properly block into fearsomes, can also kill something in the process where you attack. Normally they would just get jump blocked because at mana 5 they have a big blocker that will just take it out and has almost always more than 2 HP, because beforehand it was 2 damage and was very weak, I have to say. And then we have Sun Guardian getting 1 HP more. I don't know if this will do anything. I don't think so. It's still a pretty bad card in the sense that after you have this Daybreak effect, you have it a 4/4 with Overwhelm being pretty bad. So I think a better way would be having this a 6/6 and give me +2/+2 if I have Daybreak activated. It would be way better. Then you have at least a 6/6 buddy, or maybe let it be a 5/5. But just enlarge the base stats is what I'm saying here. For 4/4 is just way too weak. And we're Star Shaping going down in HP by 1. Also happy to see that, because there are a load of decks that were just splashing in Targon, Star Shaping, get the Great Beyond, and then, yeah, finish off the game by a Spell Shield elusive unit, which is also tends to be toxic at times. So I'm also happy that Star Shaping doesn't get the big payoff of 5 HP anymore in that regard. So healthy nerf here. As well as the Serpent. Well, is it very healthy? I don't know. Maybe make it a 1/2 at least, but a 1/1, really, makes this card close to useless. I mean, yes, you can take out a blocker with it and still playing it for 0 mana, but still, I'm not a very big fan of this change. As much as I not hate Targon, but at times Targon can be annoying, especially with things like the Serpent. But it always felt fair to an extent, I think, the Serpent. So yeah, now it's close to useless. As well as the Fangs. I don't think that anybody will play this card anymore, especially considering that the Serpent is worse now. And to have a Fangs being a 2/2 is just butchering the card to making it close to useless. I mean, you can't block into fearsomes anymore, you get 1 HP less from it, you pay 4 mana for a 2/2 body, and I mean, yeah, you invoke, but you invoke the 3 or less, so most of the time you have this shitty Serpent here that isn't viable anymore. So, in many regards, a pretty butchered the card, this nerf. And that wraps out all the cards there are. It took me way longer. I will actually put this in an extra video because I don't want to make this video super long. Because it's an extra video, I will link it though. There is a link to a Taric with Lulu deck if you want to check this out. And yeah, I will call the video with that, talking about the patch as briefly as I could. Let me know what you think about these changes. There are a lot to talk about. And yeah, until the next one. You stay legendary. Vlad out.